The public comment section. Comments or testimony on agenda items listed under public hearing. Public comment will be taken at that time. Roll call, please.
Mayor Don Williams.
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Here.
Chester Norikis.
Here.
Wes Ryan.
Here.
Roger Sprague.
Here.
Susan Walke. Here. Kip Ward.
Here. All right, will you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a presentation from the North Lincoln Health District, Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital.
Good evening. I'm Terry Bugenhagen, Chairman for the North Lincoln Health District. I brought some support help along with me tonight. Michael Holden, who I think you may know, I'm not too sure. And also Dr. Leslie Ogden, who is the COO for the Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital. Now, excuse me with the electronics. What we're going to present to you tonight is a little background information and to basically tell you where we are headed. Did I get all the spelling right? Looks like I did. With the new hospital. As some of you know, the new hospital concept was developed late last year and into this year, and we put together a memorandum of understanding with Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital and the Samaritan Health Services group out of Corvallis. So we're going to talk about why a new hospital, what the timeline is, design, build, and financing. What is the memorandum of understanding? I'll explain that a little bit further. A little bit about the health district and also the relationships between the entities. And taxes, which is always a popular subject. So moving on to progress and next steps. The district was formed in 1965 through a petition to the county court. And in 1967, North Lincoln Hospital opened and was licensed. By the way, that's primarily the building that you see today. The majority of it is a 1967 construction. There have been 5 additions to it. They all have not been that helpful, but they have done what they were intended to do at the time. And the hospital has had some issues with regard to, well, the hospital license or funding. A lot of it initially came from the Hill-Burton Act, and when the Balanced Budget Act of 1997 occurred, that created some real financial problems with the hospital. At that time in 97, there were 8 rural hospitals across Oregon that closed. In 97, the district board began discussing different ways to get out of the issues that we were into. Just to bring you up to speed as to who's on the district board currently, there's myself. I come out of the airline industry. I am not medically trained. Vice Chair is David Hess. Dr. David Hess comes from OHSU. And Mike Holden is the current Board Secretary Treasurer. Betty Ruth Gamester and Kitty Bushman are both former hospital employees. Dick Anderson ran this year and was elected. We're glad to have him on the board. Gordon McLean, or Mick, many of you know, came from the Providence system, been with Providence as an administrator, retiring out of Sacred Heart in Spokane. So we do have some real experience on the board. And we think we know what we're doing, but that was the enlightening part because we knew we were going to get over our heads. There is a current 30-year contract with SHS that was developed between 97 and 2000, and 2001 is the actual signing date, and at that time, the health district pulled itself away from the operations of the hospital and gave the operations over under this contract through a lease. It's a master lease, and it's a triple net lease. So the majority of the hospital operation is by and for Samaritan Systems or Services. We serve as a leaseor, landlord relationship. We do have some monies that go into capital improvements for the hospital, but we have some limitations, as about 90% of our revenue goes to the non-operational costs of the hospital. Basically, there has been very little positive margin with the hospital. 2009, there was a survey conducted by the Pyramid Group, and it was funded by the Hospital Foundation and the district. And basically, it was to try to figure out where we needed to go and how to get there. Out of it, there was a demonstrated need for more doctors, which we'd all like to have, more specialists, and a concern expressed about choices and about access. To give you an idea of who regulates hospitals, this is actually a 2000 slide, year 2000. I put it in for shock value. As you can see, everybody's got a little bit of the action, and therefore it becomes difficult to wind your way through the maze to get what we all would like to have, and that is a up-to-date critical access hospital that is fit for our community and that can serve our community. The 2012 survey that Samaritan Health Services did gave us an idea of where we would stand from a property tax standpoint should we choose the route of going for a revenue bond. And as you can see, our chances were somewhat limited. I came on the board about 2011. While I come out of the airline industry, I have an engineering background, and I also have a lot of background in facilities, having worked at airports my entire 40-year career. So I proposed a visit by architects and engineers to the hospital to make an assessment of where we stood with the hospital and what was the life-limiting factors and what we needed to do going forward. And at that time also, we decided that the current campus planning group be disbanded and that we start looking for a different path to try to follow. We felt that some of the questions that needed to be answered is to, will we need to replace the hospital? Is it essential? Well, yeah, it's kind of the reason the voters in 1965 approved the formation of the health district. The also federal critical access designation and an Oregon necessary provider designation makes good chances for us to maintain a hospital and a health district here in North Lincoln City. We do have about 260 employees that are at the hospital, so we have with the hospital some economic base for the North County. And I noticed in some recent articles about quality health care and surveys that have been done about quality health care, and that's what we intend to provide. There is a survey, and I'll show you the results of that was done by David Hawker, which ranked, you see it in the fourth bar from the right on the screen. Healthcare is the #1 priority for the community. So we felt we needed to really figure out a different way to approach the problem. Why not try a building bond or levy? There's a difference in the economics between North County and South County. As many of you know, the Pacific Communities Hospital or Health District did pass earlier this year a $57 million levy, and they will be receiving also a $10 million commitment from Samaritan Health Services for building a new hospital, removing some of the buildings, and also for renovating some of the existing facilities that would be appropriate to do that with. This is a 2012 slide, but the numbers are basically the same. We did take a look at, and Dave Hawker, and we appreciate his assistance, took a look at for us what the value or what the cost to the individual property tax owner would be if we went for, as you see, $20 million, $30 million bond levy, and as you can appreciate, it gets a little bit expensive. This is a quote that we've kind of taken as our motto, if you will. Local government can no longer be the center of all problem solving. Elected leaders must work with private, not-for-profit, and other community partners to address the problem. This is what we're doing. Essentially, we have, through this memorandum of understanding with Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital and Samaritan Health Services, we are going to take the value of the health district's properties and sell them to Samaritan Health Services, Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital, in exchange for a new critical access hospital to be built and financed and designed by them. So then the question comes about, why do we have to have the health district? Because out of your taxes you are paying some monies, about 54 cents per 1,000. This is a little chart that was provided to us that tells us basically we are contributing to the bottom line of the hospital, and in fact in 13 and 14 we got it above the positive mark. Now, that does not mean that the district is going to go away. We still have a retirement plan obligation to the former employees, of which about 88 employees are currently on, and there's about 42 more to come to us requesting benefits. We feel that there's also other health needs in the county that we would like to direct our attentions to, and that being addiction and mental health. Currently, there is not a facility in the county, and as you know, Commissioner Bill Hall has been active, particularly with Pacific Communities, trying to get something going, if we will, towards that area, and we'd like to do it also. And we do have some administrative costs as a special district. None of us, we're all elected. We're, like you all, no salaries. And it's a lot of work. And we do get into an argument once in a while. Such as, over the years, yes, we've worked with Samaritan Health Services, and we are electing to stay with them because we have 15 years experience. We feel that they're well integrated into the community. We feel also that our relationship with them has improved now that we both understand better the differences between providing health care and where health care is going to go in the future. We're looking at some of the things, how to do this quickly, do designs that are consistent with the industry, and those are smaller, more flexible designs. Questions on that can be answered by Dr. Ogden, who has viewed a number of hospitals in Oregon and would like to bring some of that design consistency or design considerations here to North Lincoln County. What about the board losing control? This has been something that's been brought to the board members' attention on occasion. And basically, since 2000, we have not had local control over the operation of the hospital. It is a lease. It's a triple net lease. We provide capital improvement monies when it's needed, but Samaritan has done a pretty good job overall in providing the services, and they're doing a better job as we speak today. And we think they can really do, given a new facility, provide more services, give us a better opportunity for health care access, as well as bringing some more those services into town. It makes an employment opportunity better for them to get people in town to work for them. These are the questions that we have laid out. I can tell you that would a bond levy pass? We did not think so. We have some access to government funding through the Department of Agriculture, and unfortunately that is a loan. There are no more grants. And you can see the rest of the questions that we have asked ourselves has basically been yes. Our next steps are definitive documents by the end of the year, and we're pretty close. We're continuing to work on that. We have appraisals in process. Property surveys are going to be conducted. There is a structural change that's going to occur if the North Lincoln Foundation agrees with it. We will support whatever they want to do. Right now, the foundation is with the health district, and the idea is to move them over to the Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital, and they would be then better able to provide monies directly to the hospital rather than going through the district. We have never stood in their way, but we didn't want to in the end. As we go forward with design, we plan to do some community meetings looking for design input as well as service inputs. And we're always open to our meetings, which are held on the third Thursday of the month at Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital in the educational conference room at 9:30 in the morning. So I'll answer any questions. I think I'm out of time, though. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Any questions?
Are you able to speak to the design changes anticipated with the new hospital?
Not at this time. We haven't advanced along to that stage yet. And I should note that whilst the Pacific Communities Hospital has on their website some nice, pretty drawings, they're still in that process also. But basically, if you take a look at Prineville, Wallala, Prineville's a good example. They're in Burns is another hospital. They can give you some ideas of what it may look like, although there are considerations here for the coast that are absolutely necessary to make versus, oh, I see Mr. Rick is here. Good. So, yeah, we've got a little ways to go. We're thinking right now, timeline-wise, we might be breaking ground by 2018.
Mr. Mayor? Sir. Question. Do you anticipate the type of design that, in other words, do you have a preference to like a one-story, two-story, three-story, whatever?
Whatever.
Whatever, okay.
Actually, these are kinds of questions that really need to go to the experts in the field, and that is the architects and the engineers who are designing these buildings, particularly in the critical access. There's about 4 architectural firms here in the Northwest that are very acute in doing critical access hospital design. One of the design criteria, of course, is the flexibility of design. At the current hospital, as you can see, we do have certain areas of the hospital which are designated to certain services. We've got to move from that mentality into a more flexible design. We may end up with less rooms. Right now, we're at 25. My guess is we'll probably 15, 20. But your ambulatory care services goes up because you're not doing that much inpatient work. A lot of it's outpatient work. You can go home after the procedure. I like that one. Secondly, all those rooms may be designed to be today a critical care room, and tomorrow it may be a birthing room. If we put all of the services in those rooms, then we can move that around without having to build. Right now, we're restricted, and it's also a real staffing issue, trying to keep a birthing unit staffed, a critical care rooms, 4 of them, staffed. Maybe nobody in them, but they have to be staffed.
Does a critical care hospital meet the requirements of a trauma center?
Yes, we are a level 4 trauma center. And there are 2 level 1s in Oregon. I think I'm correct. Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Would we improve our capability as far as trauma center? I don't think so, and I don't really know. But that will be something that I'm sure will be talked about as we go through the designs.
Thank you.
What additional services do you see your new hospital creating?
Can I defer to Dr. Ogden for that one?
And just if you'd briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Leslie Ogden. I'm the COO of Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital. I can tell you from our demographic analysis and service line analysis that has just been done very briefly. It hasn't been done to a complete fruition like you would want those studies done, but just to look at it as a snapshot. We're looking at our demographic that is currently in place with 50% of our population age 50 and older continuing to grow. We have some growth projections along the next 35 years, but we know that this is going to continue to be the majority of our population. So our new services that we're looking at would be more services targeted primarily at that age group, not to exclude the other age groups because obviously we need to care for everyone, but service lines like orthopedics, urology, general surgery, things along those lines that we know our older populations use more of. We need to expand those and grow those and really match the demand to what is being expected.
Great answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much
Really
for the
appreciate your
opportunity.
time. All right, we move on to consent agenda. The consent calendar consists of items of a repeat or routine nature considered under a single action. A counselor may remove a consent agenda item for separate consideration upon request. And since it's been a while, do I need to read each one of these off and then ask for, you
Mr.
want to pull it
Mayor,
off?
I would like to remove number 6 and number 8 from the consent agenda.
6 and 8.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to pull 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Anyone else? Okay, I was going to pull 8, so great. All right. Well, then I guess kind of a motion to, well, do I do the motion now to accept the others?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept, well, for some reason, we're starting on 2, so.
Yeah.
Okay. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Councilor Walkie.
Oh. Should we start with?
I had 6 and 8 from you, so.
Okay. On the Council of Governments agreement, which is number 6, on page 3, paragraph 6, it refers to county's use. I think that should be Council of Governments use.
I am not seeing a page.
And also, the pages aren't numbered.
Yeah, thank you.
Which makes it very hard to follow.
Counselor, can you say again where that is
It's
located?
Page 3, paragraphs, B, excuse me, I couldn't read my writing.
I'm not seeing it. Oh, B.
Okay, got it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so with that change, and then 8,
I have another question regarding that article, Mr. Mayor.
okay.
Is Gail in the House?
She is not.
Mr. Appicello, currently, is this program working well? Are they cleaning up after themselves and taking care of the equipment, et cetera?
It was my understanding that issues that needed to be addressed were added per Gail's memo. So, except for what she stated, yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else on 6?
Not 6, no.
Okay, so we have 8 still. Councilor Walkie?
Not sure where the reference was, but I think it was partner obligations. Wondering if we have a representative for annual meetings or just a county representative. And it also requires volunteer hours. Are we required to contribute cash and volunteer hours?
I thought it read that we could do either or.
One or. All right.
I could be wrong.
It was my understanding that it was either or, and I believe that Ian has been staffing this particular matter.
Thank you.
And on 8 also, I have questions. I'm not familiar with this agreement at all, or this organization. So I'm just asking, is there a cost to the city on this, Mr. Chandler?
Just in the partnership that was discussed.
But I saw something about per plant and the like. And
As I understand, if I recall from our discussion back in June when this was before us, it was for also if the city purchases the plants.
okay,
You're basically becoming a partner, and to clarify, we've already purchased through this partnership program, and the city manager has contracting authority and purchase plants, but we adopted an ordinance amendment a couple months back authorizing the city manager to enter into intergovernmental agreements that of less than a certain dollar amount.
Okay.
This agreement kind of fell in between, so we wanted to bring it back, essentially ratifying that we want to be a partner, which entitles us to purchase plants at the rates that they offer They're partners to plants.
Okay, and then I guess one more question, I'm sorry, and forgive me, because I'm not remembering this conversation very well, is who then is in charge of the plantings, and what access are they given? Is it we will have people install these plants, or they do it?
Yeah, in this case, it falls under under Ian Keene, who is our maintenance on this.
Okay, so then they're given license to go, or if that's the right word, permission to go on to the properties, take care of these, and their insurance are covered, and all.
We have projects like exotic invasive species removal, and we go into an area, rip out the exotics that leaves bare land. We want to get it revegetated with the appropriate native vegetation. That's what this is about, to basically make us a partner so that we can take advantage of the low-cost native plant, basically.
Right, sure. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on liability.
Yes,
Things.
you're clear on it.
Okay, that's all I had then. Okay, and anyone else on 8? Okay, and then 5 and 7, Roger?
Item 5, on the minutes from the meeting of July 13, item J12, which is talking about the available commercial space presentation that was made. Down towards the end of that paragraph, the next to last sentence, it says, the Elks is over 276,000 square feet out of 37,000 that's available. It doesn't read right. The Elks isn't 276,000 square feet. It's the opposite. It's 37,000, I believe.
It's actually 27,000. I made a typo on that and have corrected it.
It has been? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then on item 7, on the purchase of the vehicles, I think we need to reword that sentence A to read, it is proposed that the city purchase 2 2015 Explorer police interceptors instead of the way it's worded. It's really confusing. You've got different numbers in there and one in parentheses, and it doesn't really read understandably.
Or it says 1, 2, 2015 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor.
So if you would change it to the way that I presented it, I think it'll mean something. Then also in the next paragraph there, the last word that shows there on the first sentence is has. Change that to have to make that grammatically correct.
Anyone problem with that? Okay, that it?
That's it.
Okay, so then with those changes, I get a motion to accept, or, motion to accept the consent agenda items 5, 6, 7, and 8.
With the changes as noted.
The changes as noted.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I need, because there's money involved, do I need to have a roll call?
I would.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sprague,
Yes.
Walke,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
And Norikis.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, and then we're going to deviate from our script here just a little bit and have an introduction by Mr. Chandler.
Mayor and Council, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our new Human Resources Director, Colleen Scanlon. She started on Friday, and we are absolutely thrilled to have her. She comes to us from Ketchikan, which I have learned through our interview process is very similar to us, although you can only reach it by boat, where we have 2 roads that come into town. And we wanted to give her just a few minutes to introduce herself to you.
So I'm Colleen Scanlon, and I come from Ketchikan, Alaska, which is an island community in southeast Alaska. Our economy is mostly tourism-based. We have about a million passengers that come in on cruise ships between the months of May and September. And part of the attraction to me for Lincoln City was it is so similar in size and demographics and the type of industries that they're here. And I'm real excited to be here. I love being on the water and glad I didn't have to leave that part of my home. I still have an ocean to look at every day. And I'm very happy to be here and excited to work for the city.
Well, welcome. We're
Thank you.
very glad you're here. I know Mr. Chandler is too.
Very much so. We did go through a very, very extensive process, thorough interview process and weeding out process, and we're just really excited that she's with us.
Now, will Colleen be taking over the ADA?
We still have Kevin Matthias, who is doing the ADA.
Okay, great.
And so she will work closely with him, but he is still in charge of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, we move on to comments from citizens present on agenda and non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to bring to the council's attention any item not listed on the agenda for public hearing or public comment. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per citizen, and the city recorder will use the light system. Speakers may not yield their times to others, and as a general rule, this is not a time for exchange of questions. At the conclusion of this agenda item, a councilor may discuss or raise questions regarding an item presented by a citizen. The mayor has the authority to reduce the time allowed for comment in accordance with the number of persons present and signed up to speak. So we're going to start with Mr. Paul Long.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Paul Long, and I'm 69 years old and single, and I live here homelessly. I've been doing that since 2002, and I'm here tonight to ask you to help me get the ordinance changed that allows me to park on public parking. It's an ordinance here that gives the city manager the authority to give me a permit to park anywhere in public, but it's never been issued. So I've lived here homelessly. The only thing I rent here is a box about this size at B&B Packing, and it's a personal mailbox. I have been very concerned about myself here. First half, I had a track phone. All you could do was 911 on it. But due to technology, I can keep myself safe through this device and this device right here. And I'm here to tell you that I'd like to see our city in such a way that only the police wear billy clubs, just like they do overseas when we're under surveillance 24 hours a day, and make this the safest community in the world. I'm here to tell you that it's difficult to be here when your driver's license says you're a continuous traveler. Try to get something when you trespass everywhere you go. All you own or rent is that little box down there at B&B. It all started in 2002 when I lost my home in Salem and filed bankruptcy and decided to live in an RV. I wandered around all the valley and all the places and tried to live, and I remember that I visited here in 1969, and I thought, what a beautiful place to retire to. Wonderful place. And it dawned on me that I have a friend that lives off of beach down here in Taft, Nelscott, excuse me, but he's dead now. He allowed me to park in his private driveway for years, and I got to absorb what it's like to be homeless here. Well, if you're in an RV, you're in big trouble here, because you have an ordinance that says it's got to be undercover, it can't be lived in, and a whole bunch of things. So I lived on the street, went through 4 RVs and 6 cars because I don't want to sleep under the stars. But anyway, it all started with me trying to join the library. That's how I got a police record here in 2010, and you can look it up. And it all because you want $50 for a homeless person to join your library. So I got down to Newport one day, and I got one for free, and I found out that card gets me into the Tillamook Library, it gets me into the Lincoln City Library, but it's a different color. I showed up one day trying to get into the little computer room there that was up-to-date computers, and that was my career. I'm 32 years a federal employee, got a mental disability in 97 after an automobile accident that crippled me, but I survived. I got a military retirement at age 60 because I spent 32 years in the U.S. Army and went to Vietnam, and I served in the U.S. Reserve, and I served in the National Guard in Oregon. Arizona, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and I came back to Oregon and served here.
Paul?
But I also, my career was interrupted.
No. If I can interrupt, please try to stay in front of the mic when you turn.
Okay.
Nobody can hear you.
I lost my job because I had marijuana in my system, but I soldiered on as an E5 and got my retirement. But anyway, it's worth $930, together with my $1,300 civil service pension after so many years, and now I'm Social Security disability. So I live here very comfortably on $100 a day. But you won't let me live comfortably because I live in an RV. And I refused to pay $37 a night when I rented here 5 years ago. For the last 5 years, I rented in an illegal apartment for $100 a week. I got not evicted, but I agreed to leave this month after 5 years of being depressed, and I decided to get out. Well, that created a lot of problems because now I'm on the street again. My job is to move cheese, and it smells here. This council does not understand what it's like to be homeless here. I've been before the city council, not city council, but the city managers, 3 of them, and asked permission for that permit and refused. Been refused twice by this gentleman. His hands are tied. This council won't allow me to live here freely. So since that time, I've been on private property and all up and down here. I have two more miles of wonderful Lincoln City to enjoy now, Road's End. So I'm in one of those areas today. Today, the wonderful Indians allow me on 40 points. I could park for 72 hours there, and they won't bother me at all. And all I want is the city to allow me, when I'm on public property with that RV, to leave me alone. Not just 2:30 to 5 in the morning. I want ordinance 205-9 taken off the books, period. You can't park, camp, and sleep in this city because I'm homeless. Just this week alone, I've had the police visit me 10 times. 10 times. And you know what it's about? Because I'm the only one that sits there and takes it and gets arrested. But they won't issue me that ticket. They will not give me that fine if they catch me parking, camping. They want me the hell out of town, and they tell me just frankly to get out of town. And I look them straight in the face and say, I'm not stupid. I got some friends called the Indians up here to let me park for free. But I don't want to live there 24/7. This is a beautiful city. One of the best views in the world is right out there off of Silet's Bay.
Paul, I'm going to thank you for your time. If you want to stick around, I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
I will.
All right.
I'll be back every
Thank you
council
so
meeting
much.
until that ordinance changes.
All righty.
To get my 5 minutes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well said. Joe Francis, you're next.
Everybody know what that means?
Paul, I'm going to have you clear the way, bud. We've got someone else coming up. Thank you so much. Don't forget your phone.
I won't.
All righty.
Okay, so I'll call for it.
Okay.
By the way, I lost my dog today.
I'm
The
so
father
sorry.
of this dog, the owner of this dog lost his. My mother's also died on this day 15 years ago.
Thank you, Paul. Joe Francis.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Joe Francis Kalk, and I am a Lincoln City resident. Lincoln City has a poverty rate of 20%, or about 1,594 residents, which is a 4% higher than the rest of Lincoln County. The child poverty rate in Lincoln City is 25%, or 2,000 children, which is 3% higher than the rest of Lincoln County. 44% of Lincoln City residents are eligible for SNAP food stamps. This represents 3,517 low-income people in Lincoln City, which is 8.5% higher than the rest of Lincoln County. It is estimated by Partners for Hunger-Free Oregon that 71% of those eligible for SNAP benefits have enrolled in Lincoln County. However, among seniors in Lincoln County, the estimate drops to 37% enrolled. In addition, there are 615 people, or 7.7%, with income half or less of the poverty level in Lincoln City. This is 1.3% higher than the rest of Lincoln County. 48% 30%, or 3,858 people in Lincoln City are in housing cost burden, meaning that they pay more than 30% of their income on rent or mortgage, and this is 9.5% higher than the rest of Lincoln County. These statistics are from the Oregon State University's Rural Studies Program, 2009 to 2013. One example, thanks to some dedicated volunteers at the Dorchester House, 17 Dorchester residents have been identified as food insecure. They are on Meals on Wheels, which is a great program offering hot lunches on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and frozen lunches for Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Food Share of Lincoln County through the local food pantry is another great program that offers food once a month for those who can drive to the pantry. However, most of the Dorchester residents in need don't drive. The Lincoln City churches and faith communities have fantastic weekly or monthly meal programs for those who are able to get to the churches. The Dorchester residents are on SNAP, but often the SNAP allotment, which is an average of $90 per month, per person per month, runs out halfway through the month. All of these agencies and others are trying to help the same basic demographic of Lincoln City residents who are low income and many of whom are food insecure. However, most of the basic services for low-income residents are in Albany, Toledo, or Newport, and require that applicants either come to the offices or use the internet. Many low-income residents don't have cars, computers, or internet access, and a number of them don't know where to go to get help. I'm not asking for money. I am seeking Lincoln City Council's authorization for me and other volunteers to contact the various agencies, groups, charities, and churches to propose coordinating these individual efforts and or co-locating resources into satellite offices in Lincoln City that are staffed at least once a week to help those who cannot get to the main offices, and to broadcast the available services in other venues in addition to the internet. I will be happy to provide an official proposal to the City Council if interested. I and others are ready to contact the various agencies, seeking a structure within which to accomplish the goal of coordinating resources and making them available within Lincoln City to reduce or eliminate food insecurity, provide housing assistance, increase health care support, and provide other basic needs of people with low income in Lincoln City. Thank you.
Francis, that was great, and I would definitely encourage you to bring something, if not to us, at least to Mr. Chandler, that we can start talking about. What in the world was I just going to ask you? I just lost it. Oh, could you provide us with a copy of that?
Yes.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, the data was perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Smith. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Mr. Ross Smith.
Ross Smith, Cutler. Honorable Mayor and Councilors, thank you for your service. Everything I'm about to say tonight comes from public records and is available on tsole.org. That's tsole.org. 3 days before the Ethics Commission met to review the ethics complaint that our City Attorney, Richard Apichello, drafted against Mayor Williams, he wrote the commission and told them our mayor is under a criminal investigation. Now, our City Attorney wasn't authorized to do this, and I won't speculate on his motives, but suffice it is to say that the definition of official misconduct in the first degree is an unauthorized exercise of authority with the intent to harm another. And it seems that
They are sensitive.
It seems that no one took the time to proofread the 315-page ethics complaint because it has at least one pretty glaring falsehood in it. And the Ethics Commission relied on this falsehood in their report. So I'm not sure what the legal consequences of that are, but the Commission's lawyers are looking into it. Also, I just discovered that not only has our City Attorney alerted the Department of Justice of a criminal investigation of our mayor, but I'm being criminally investigated as well. Now, our city attorney and the Department of Justice has been asked what they think I've done wrong, but both refuse to answer my questions. All we know right now is that our city attorney claims that I've criminally threatened the city in a public records request I sent in on September 16th. Now, you should all have a copy of that. I just sent it to you today. And if you look at it, you can see that there's nothing even remotely threatening in it, so labeling it as a criminal threat is certainly beyond the pale. And given that and the falsehood in the ethics complaint, it would be good if we started checking his facts very carefully, or we could all end up paying a very heavy price for it down the road. And we have to ask, how many other investigations has our city attorney launched? Do you guys know? Is he required to tell you? Perhaps he's launched investigations on all of you. There's no way for us to find out because they're secret, right? Maybe that's why you seem so beholden to him. You're as afraid of him as the rest of us. Since we seem so keen on starting investigations, why stop at me? Let's start an investigation if the city has issued 9 illegal citations against our citizens in the last 3 years, some for over $168,000. And let's find out if you guys actually are following your city attorney's advice and discussing anything you want in your private executive sessions, as he claimed he could when he first started in 2013. Because that certainly can't be legal, can it? Then let's delve into if Pam Lind, a senior planner with the tribe, was maliciously prosecuted when she was slapped with over $26,000 in fines and then coerced into giving up her vacation rental license, all while her husband lay dying of cancer. And speaking of losing a vacation rental, do you recall your staff telling you had an increase of 85 new vacation rentals in the last 4 years? You know what the truth is? We've lost 23 units. So why did your staff feel the need to overstate by 108 units? Maybe it's because some of those 23 homeowners have suffered the same injustices as Pam Lind. Here's another one. Did you know that this past August, the list of vacation rentals was requested of the city, and our attorney denied the request with an 81-page response? Yet a senior official from our planning department recently gave the VRD list to a private individual who was told to keep it confidential. That certainly should be looked into, right? And finally, let's investigate if it was proper for our mayor and Councilor Davis to be kept from participating in deliberations on the VR zones. Okay, so that's 8 investigations so far, and I can think of at least 4 more regarding our city attorney, and I can think of 12 other investigations that would be good grist for the mill. And so if it's your intention to turn our once peaceful town into a police state, then you're certainly doing an excellent job. As no one's ever going to speak up again to talk against things for fear of being labeled a criminal or becoming the subject of a secret investigation. And no one's ever going to want to publicly support the mayor ever again for fear of being caught up in your dragnet. I have more, but I think I'll stop.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for listening and your service.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate it. Mr. John Skipper.
Seems to me it was about 5 years ago, going on 5 years ago now, that we started this current saga that has been going on and on and on regarding the vacation rental business in our little town. And I think we have done enough of that. So I want to suggest that we do one thing to our existing ordinance, and I think it'll help fix the problem. just draw a line through the term accessory use, and let's get on with our lives. It's just been too long and too much for us to really go on with. And, there are some other things that the city needs to be doing. I think there's a list of things that are more important than continuing what I've been calling the VRD wars. So let's consider that seriously. I think Wes Ryan suggested that at a recent meeting, that we get rid of accessory use rather, and get on with it. So that's my suggestion for this evening.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you coming up. Okay, Paul. All right, Mr. Warner. You guys are going to have to start sitting up front.
Ralph started it up before he was ready.
My name is Jerry Warner. I live at 1233 Lakewood. Mayor and Council, I'm here tonight just to reflect a few things that I think the taxpayers of Lincoln City ought to really know about.
Jerry, I'm going to ask you to pull that speaker just to the mic. Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. I'm here tonight just to discuss a few issues that I understand last council meeting you were discussing possibility of a utility franchise increase. And over the past years, I have addressed the City Council about City Manager Hawker and his mismanagement of taxpayers' money. However, it is the previous City Councils that have allowed these excessive spendings of our tax dollars. Here are some of the facts about Lincoln City the taxpayers of this community should know. Now, this is during the recession, starting in 2007, when there was absolutely nothing going on in the city. Construction had stopped. There was no additions, no street rebuilding, nothing going on. During that period of time, the City Council approved and a 23% increase in salaries plus benefits of 69%. In other words, we now have approximately 140 employees with salary and benefits that are $13 million. In other words, during the recession, he increased, and with your approval, $5,257,137 in increases in salaries and benefits. Now, it's amazing when there's nothing going on in the city. Now let's take a look at another subject here. At $5 million, we have the most expensive police department and 911 system that I can find per capita that I can find in this state. Here's a good one. Now, this lady that just spoke about how the poverty of this community is so bad, this is a good one, fits right in there with it. Sewer and water rates have increased 59% since 2007, 59%. And this last year, it was a 4.95 increase from previous year, with an average monthly bill, which an average home would have 700 cubic feet. You are now paying $302 more than you were in 2007. You passed, the City Council passed these rate increases like somebody would hand out free popcorn. In 2012-13 budget, revenue from property taxes was $3,942,905, and in 2015-16, it is $5,893,453, an increase of 49%. This city has money coming over the sideboards, I'll tell you. Transit room tax in 2030 brought in revenue of $4,642,671, and in 2 years, 2015, $6,168,919, a 33% increase. In the last 3 years, the city received approximately $3 million in dedicated street from TRT tax. However, the city only spent $439,543. Of that $3 million dedicated dollars, only 15% went to resurfacing the streets. That's an amazing number. That just shows that we're not doing our job. Over 6 months ago, I made a presentation here at the council that the city was going to study the 304 properties owned by the city, which no taxes are paid. These properties have an assessed value of over $50 million. Over 40% are surplus and should be sold. Nothing has happened with the city. You people themselves said that you were going to study this thing. City Council has approved the $2.5 million of the Village of the Cascade. Since the city has spent and approved a budget, since then they have spent and approved a budget of $403,702 for pump station paving and maintenance. This city has a huge resource of money, and due to poor management in prior city councils, they are representing government over its citizens. It's time for a change. Some of these council members should be recalled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Anyone who did not sign up who would like to speak at this point? Sir, come on forward and give us your name. Oh, that's fine. Just have a seat and just let us know your name. It's all good. You just take your time and...
All right. I'm homeless as well.
Okay, I just need your name if I could, please.
My name's Alvin Freer, F-R-E-A-R.
Thank you, Alvin.
I've been homeless 4 years here.
Lean in a little bit, bud, or pull that towards you.
I've been homeless like 4 years here now.
Thank you.
When I came here, I was a pretty upstanding person, like some of y'all, you know. Worked at a hospital. I used to do all kinds of stuff. Since I've got here, my life has been pretty much destroyed. And all I can do is keep helping where some places need more assistance. Like, I take care of at least 20 to 22, 23 homeless people. Some of them are young enough to be your kids or grandkids, and some of them are old enough to be you guys. When we had the really big winter storm here, I walked all night long helping people to that warming center. But that thing's got to get open sooner or something, because I don't know how many people sleep outside like I do. I'll tell you what, it's getting cold out there. And that's like one of my big concerns, is that one. And I can't remember my other one.
It's okay.
But, yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, are you going to be able to hang around? I'd like to see you after the meeting if you feel like it.
Right on.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it. Anyone else who did not sign up would like a chance to speak now? Going. All right. Thank you all so much.
Your Honor.
Sir.
If I could address the overnight parking recreational vehicle thing real quickly. I just wanted to let you know that in Section 908.050 of our code, it's a Class A misdemeanor to park overnight camping in a RV in a parking area. Last year, we attempted to address this, and it's, I believe, what the gentleman was referring to, is that we amended Chapter 1216.030 and Chapter 1216.025 to allow camping is still prohibited except in designated areas. And the Public Works Director, who is essentially the Parks Director for purposes of the ordinance, has the ability to designate special use areas under Section 025, which would include designating spaces in parking lots for overnight camper use. Now, that authority has not been exercised And there's been no decision yet as to whether or not to have metered parking or permit parking or whether to do it at all. And there's costs involved. But we have addressed this, at least relative to parking lots for city parks. We have not addressed it for parking lots, public parking lots that the city owns.
And does that cover on-street parking as well?
No, I'm only talking about city parking lots.
Okay.
So if you want me to explore the same kind of allowance for city parking lots as opposed to city park parking lots, you can give me that direction. But at this point, you have addressed it to some extent in a permit program in the parks ordinance adopted in December of last year.
And could you fill me in on what constitutes camping or overnight?
Well, the camping allowance by permit is broad and allows camping in any designated special use area. So it would encompass if the city decided to allow overnight camping on a park, even an interim park like the Villages, you could designate areas for overnight camping and issue permits for that with or without charge. But so it also would encompass RV camping, parking, basically parking your RV in a city parking lot. There's a limitation, no more than 5 days in the ordinance. So I know the gentleman referenced 72 hours at the casino or the tribe property.
And that's in one spot, but there's no cumulative within the city?
That's just, it says a permit is good for up to 5 days in that location.
Okay. I would be interested in delving a little further, but it's up to council, I guess. Any thoughts? Hearing a little bit more about this? And
Sure.
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on. We are at ordinances, and I guess I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Apichello to take over here.
Okay, Your Honor, we have a request for ordinance 2015, first and second reading. Ordinance 2015-14, first and second reading. At least that's what the council communication says. Since this was drafted, I've had further discussions with the Public Works Department, and we'd like to request that if you get past first reading tonight, that we continue second reading to the December 14th meeting, allow written comments from the public through December 9th. So the recommendation is not adopt it all today, but rather do first reading today if that's satisfactory with any changes you may want, and then allow written public comment up until December 9th at noon. So that's different than what's written on the council communication, so that's why I'm just starting with that. Essentially, this is an ordinance that addresses connection to sewer service. The existing code provides in 1312-160 that if there is sewer available to your property, you have to connect within 120 days. There is no distinction in the existing ordinance between gravity sewer lines and pressure sewer lines. It just says if sewer is installed and available, you have to connect within 120 days. Now, there is no definition in the ordinance, existing ordinance, about what exactly does installed mean, what exactly does available mean. And we've heard testimony about DEQ rules. If it's within 300 feet, you have to connect. So what we did was we addressed the definitions in the ordinance that were missing, and the council should remember that we've talked about this over the years with the discussions of the Voyage Lake LID and the 2 or 3 times that's come up. And so what we've done is suggest that we give people a little bit more time to connect to gravity when it is in front of their property. So right now, if a gravity sewer line is placed in front of your property and you are on a septic tank, you have 120 days to connect. We're proposing to increase that to half a year, 180 days instead of 120 days. Now, if it's a pressure line, since staff has analyzed this and believes that pressure sewer connections generally cost at least 5 times more than a gravity sewer connection, we've increased the time to 48 months. So that was staff's basically estimate of, how much time do you need, and we went with 8 times as much for a pressure sewer than a gravity sewer. Now, there's nothing magic about those numbers. It's just what staff thought was a reasonable period of time for you to connect when there's a line in the road in front of your house, and you're currently on a septic system. So 6 months for gravity, up from 120 days under the current code, and 48 months if it's a pressure line. Again, you can provide more or less time, staff's recommendation at this point. Also, the staff decided to elaborate on what installed was as well as what's made available. So we equated the made available with the DEQ connect within 300 feet rule, and so we've basically said there's two rules. There's a general rule, and if it's installed, you have half a year or 48 months to connect. There are some exceptions to the general rule, and the exceptions allow you either less time or more time depending on the circumstances. So the exceptions would be your septic system fails. Doesn't matter if you have a gravity line within 300 feet or a pressure line within 300 feet. If your septic system fails, you must connect to the sewer, pressure sewer or gravity sewer if it's within 300 feet. And that's immediately. You don't get our permission to go ahead and pollute the environment with a failed septic system. Now, connection to a gravity or low pressure is also required if you're going to enlarge your use so that it creates additional demand, or change your use. So you change the use of your property, or you enlarge, you double the size of your building. It requires a larger septic system. You're not allowed to install a larger septic system. You have to connect to pressure or gravity if your property is within 300 feet of an actual gravity line or a pressure line. And then the third exception would be if it's new construction. So we don't want a new home built with a brand new septic tank or a new non-residential structure built with a brand new septic tank if there is a pressure line or a gravity line within 300 feet. We're trying to encourage people not to use septic tanks and not to replace systems. If your septic system is in for a permit to repair, and the repair is a minor repair, less than 50% of the value, you can get it repaired. But if it's more than 50% or you need to replace it, you cannot replace it. You have to connect if there is a gravity line or a pressure line within 300 feet. And then the final exception, and this one is a little different because it refers to installed as opposed to within 300 feet. Remember, installed is it's right there in the street in front of you. So connection to an installed gravity or low-pressure sewer line is required within 120 days, as it currently provides, if on the sale of the real property containing the dwelling or non-residential dwelling. So, and the reason for that trigger, as we discussed during the Voyage Lake discussions, is that the connection cost can be incorporated into the home sale. And then there's a kind of an exception to the general rule. Again, the general rule is if it's installed pressure line or installed gravity line, you have to connect within 48 months or within 6 months, depending on what kind it is, except if you're in a local improvement district. If you're in an LID and it gives you 10 years to pay off the LID, you don't have to connect early unless one of these other events occurs, like your septic system fails. So you might be 6 years before you need to connect if you're in an LID. Depends on how long the LID is. If it's a 10-year LID, you could go as much as 10 years and not have to connect to a pressure sewer system, where the general rule would have you connect in 48 months. So, again, this was staff's attempt to take the existing code, which has been interpreted as applying only if the line was in front, but it doesn't actually say that, and to flesh it out a little bit. We have other mechanisms we can use to lessen the burden on property owners that have to connect, and you've already directed me to come back with these, so you'll be seeing in the future a system development charge installment payment fee. So, for example, if you have to connect within 48 months because there's now an installed pressure sewer in front of your property, you'd be like, oh gosh, not only do I have to pay the cost for the pump and the line to connect, I got to pay that $6,000 some odd SDC. Well, we're in the process of authorizing, and through another ordinance amendment, installment payment of SDC charges. So we'll provide that as relief for burdened property owners who get caught up in having to connect. The other thing that we're working on is the DEQ loan can be expanded to address this. If you recall, Ron Tierney had brought forth a DEQ loan where we borrow money from DEQ for the purpose of getting people off septic tanks and connecting, and that loan can be used for purchases of the pumps, the E1 pumps. And so we have a program there which can also be used by property owners who are trigger connection or want to connect early. So that's in the context of all of this. This is just the first piece. Again, staff's recommendation is that we do first reading today, then we set second reading for December 14th and allow submission of written comments up till December 9th. If there's no discussion, I'll conduct the reading. If you want to discuss it, go ahead.
I had a quick question, but Mr. Sprague, go ahead.
It's conceivable that if I own a piece of property and from this point, call it the northwest or the northeast corner of the property, to further east, there are 2 or 3 other property owners, but it's within 300 feet or right at 300 feet from where the sewer line ends. Does that mean then that the other property owners between mine and the 300 feet are automatically in, or do I pay for the whole extension of that sewer line?
When a private property owner, who's the third guy down the street, extends the line past the property owners in front, that property owner can do a advanced finance district or reimbursement district is what we call it in our code, which is that you pay the cost and you upfront the cost to extend, and then when they connect, they reimburse you for their fair share. So if you're paying for the extension to get it down past those 2 lots to your lot, then when they go to connect, they have to pay whatever their fair share is of that connection. So there is no free ride for those people that got skipped over. That's the whole purpose of the reimbursement district ordinance. We know when they come in, they have to pay, they pay us, and then we reimburse you with those funds.
So is there a way then that, well, I guess they can join in when they want to extend that line at the time of extension, I would assume? Yes,
and they can join in as part of the reimbursement district. Let's say a couple people down, your neighbors want to connect, but there's some intervening property owners that don't want to connect. If you and 2 other people pay the cost to extend the line, you'll be the applicant for purposes of the reimbursement district, and the 3 of you will be reimbursed when those other intervening property owners come in.
I see. Thank you.
Did you have a question? Go ahead. Okay. Well, it was just on the permitting process, because I'm not clear on it, on septic systems. That is a permitted thing, right? That you have to apply for it. So that would automatically, if we knew the sewer was in, it would just not even be issued to begin with, right? For a new one. Or a replacement.
We're communicating with the county on septic. We don't do this septic permitting, but we are notified by the county.
I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that we don't issue one, and then someone...
Yeah, the county is the issuer, so...
Right.
It's a good...
Okay, so the county issues.
A good concern.
Yeah, yeah. And so make sure that we're communicating on these things.
Yeah.
And it's the same for repair also, then, I'm assuming? You have to permit a repair.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right. That's my question.
But again, staff would like you to do the first reading today if it's acceptable, and then we'll continue this and accept additional comment. And we'd like to specifically get some comments from the county.
Mr. Anderson, did you have anything?
Mr. Appicello, and per Councilor Sprague's question and comment about the finance district or repayment district, I'm assuming that would also be the time where if there are funds available by the city, much like we have later on this agenda, that the city could insert itself as front-loading that extension, that
Yes.
sewer extension.
On the agenda later is the reimbursement district resolution for, I can't remember the name of the street, but the fact is we would prefer to be the applicant. We would prefer to use the unbonded assessment fund to make the logical extensions, where especially prioritizing where septic systems are failing, and get in there and make the improvement, and then those people that are benefited could, when they connect through the reimbursement district, repay the unbonded assessment fund, and then we can use that money to go off and try to address another problem area. In addition to that, if there are local improvement districts, we're kind of also trying to incentivize people to participate in a local improvement district to extend those services. We give them longer period of time to connect. So that's why the exception to the rule is here. If it takes 10 years and your septic tank is operating fine, you don't have to connect. But again, we are creating incentives for connection because we'd like to get people off septic tanks in the city limits.
Sure.
Richard, could you expand a little bit on the failure to connect? How would that work?
There's I kind of moved the section, but there's a existing language in the ordinance that makes it an offense not to connect and to discharge to other than an approved system. So it's, I don't remember if it's a Class A or not, but a serious offense under our code. I did not change the language there except to, I think, add a cross-reference or something.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Norikis.
Mr. Appicello, in your memo, you refer to a domino effect, triggering more connections than we can fund projects. Could you expand on that, or?
Again, we have an unbonded assessment fund, which we'd like to use to get into problem areas that people that have failing septic systems and extend service to them, and the city would upfront the money and then ask people as they connect to reimburse the city for basically the value of their benefit to their property. But once we extend that line down that road, it's going to have a little bit of a domino effect because the line just moved. And when the line moves, then 300 foot from the line moves. And that means that if someone else's system fails within where that new line is, that we've reached out a little further. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm not exactly sure how many properties are affected, and it may depend sometimes, especially if we get into a problem area. We may extend a line down a street to solve problems on that street, and then after that line's installed, there may be someone who before was not within 300 feet but is a block over and now is within 300 feet, and they have a failing system. So to the extent we get into an area, we may have a domino effect of having to go further now to correct some problems, reach some other problems. But then again, that's what we're here to do. We want to solve the problem of failing septic systems in the city. And if people are, and through whatever funding mechanism we have available, if we don't have adequate funds, you always have the non-appropriation clause. You can't appropriate the money because you don't have it, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep that in mind when we're adopting an ordinance.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Norikis, that's actually was the point I was trying to make, is my concern is to make sure it's clear that the city has a limited fund to do this advancing of the sewer system. And the domino or the pressure, I had interpreted that there might be more demand without the availability of funds, and then the individuals have to, in essence, front-load it and wait to be repaid. So I just wanted to make it above board that this isn't the city, just going to take every request. It will as long as there's funding, but there's limited until there's repayment. Correct?
Yes. If you'd like, I could add something in about the city will make every effort to fund this, but, we have non-appropriation clause that, if in fact we don't have available funds, we won't be able to extend. And then you're right, the obligation to extend would fall upon the property owner or adjacent property owners or group of property owners. And certainly, LIDs have been underutilized recently here. There used to be a time when, or I think what I was told, there were like 1 year we had 15 LIDs. Well, we just don't have them like that anymore. And we may have to go back to LIDs as a means to address the problem when we do not have sufficient funds in the unbonded assessment fund.
Mr. Mayor?
That was helpful, Councilor Anderson. Thank you.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to
Mr.
step
Sprague.
on you there. I move that we approve first reading of ordinance 2015-14 and hold the record open until December 9th.
Your Honor, I haven't actually done the reading yet.
Right. And I still have a question, but thank you.
I thought you were going to read it because of our motion.
Just a quick clarification. With this 300-foot measurement, are we talking just frontage? Because if I have a house that fronts it, and there's a house behind me 100 feet on the other side.
It's within 300 feet, but it's got to be accessible through public right-of-way or public easement or private easement. So if there is no way to get to the house behind you without going down the corner, around the corner, and back,
That's what I
then
thought.
it's not within 300 feet.
Perfect. That's what I thought. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the other, I'd like to compliment the attorney on item number C3. This is with the new construction and remodeling. It seemed like you plugged a loophole that may have been in previous ordinances on this remodeling, where I can do the fourth quarter of 1 year and first quarter of the next.
Yeah, the cumulative actually was the attempt
key.
to fill a loophole there.
Good. All right.
If you're ready, I'll do the reading.
Please.
Your Honor, Council, this is the first reading of ordinance 2015-14, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending the Lincoln City Municipal Code, Title 13, Public Services, Chapter 13.12, Water and Sewer Rates and Charges, Section 1312-160, Sewer Availability, Connection Required, to clarify sewer availability and specifically address gravity and low-pressure sewer connection triggers. Ask for approval of first reading and set second reading for December 14th.
So move.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call? Oh, yes, I just don't need that, right? Sure, let's do it.
Sprague.
Yes.
Walke.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Norikis.
Yes.
And Ryan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And ordinance 2015-17.
Your Honor, this was a land use item, and so I guess before I do the reading, you should probably ask if there's been any ex-parte communication that needs to be disclosed since the tentative oral decision was made.
Seeing none?
Okay. This is first reading of ordinance number 2015-17, an ordinance amending the Lincoln City Comprehensive Plan map to change the Comprehensive Plan map designation from the medium-density residential R7.5 and single-family residential R5 district to the vacation rental VR district, and amending the zoning map to change the zoning map designation from the single-family residential R15 and R175 zone to the vacation rental VR zone for approximately 12 acres of land generally west of the Southwest Coast Avenue and Southwest Beach Avenue, east of Southwest Anchor Avenue, north of Southwest 28th Street, and south of Southwest 24th Drive. Ask for approval of first reading, and if it's unanimous, I'll ask for second reading.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Walke.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Norikis.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
And Sprague.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, this is second reading of ordinance 2015-17, an ordinance amending the Lincoln City Comprehensive Plan map to change the comprehensive plan map designation from the medium-density residential R75 and single-family residential R5 district to the vacation rental VR district, and amending the zoning map to change the zoning map designation from the single-family residential R15 and R175 zone to the vacation rental VR zone for approximately 12 acres of land, generally west of Southwest Coast Avenue and Southwest Beach Avenue, east of Southwest Anchor Avenue, north of Southwest 28th Street, and south of Southwest 24th Drive. Ask for approval of second reading and adoption of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Ward,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Norikis.
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Sprague.
Yes.
And Walke.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're at resolutions. Resolution 2015-29, a resolution of the City of Lincoln City authorizing and establishing the Northeast 19th Street Reimbursement District pursuant to LCMC Chapter 13.06, reimbursement to City of Lincoln City.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Oh, didn't hear you. I move we adopt Resolution 2015-29.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Please, Mr. Anderson.
Was there an attachment A, attachment 1? I didn't, and not, I guess I'd like to know what it was. Engineering report.
Engineering report, it was on the council packet 2 meetings ago, is where I found it, and I could not find it on this current one, Councilor Anderson.
Okay. Well, that helps me with trying to figure out what was. The other is going over, Mr. Mayor, on page 2, so I'm looking for the number K. We're talking about only one connection is permitted per legal lot, and all lots should be required to pay per reference formula. The question I have in my margin is if it's a multifamily zone, and if they pull a permit for more than one unit, shouldn't there be more, in essence, this is a reimbursement. So since you're doing multifamily, I don't know if there is multifamily in here, so that was the one question. But if there is, you're pulling permits for 2 units, 3 units, shouldn't there be more reimbursement? That's more people, more units going onto the system rather than just one single-family home.
Your Honor, in paragraph I, it does refer to the 12 potential benefited lots established at $4,225 per sewer connection for service to one dwelling unit. So if what is proposed on the lot is something different, they're going to have to come in and ask. And they're basically, I think we added language that we may, that's the fee per dwelling unit. And if they come in for a duplex, then they have to pay, obviously, not just one $4,225 fee, but 2.
But that's what bothers me. Why should I have to pay? The $42.25 is divided
by 12.
By the fixed cost, $50,000 by 12.
Yes.
So now, if all of a sudden it's 16 instead of 12, it should be a smaller number.
You're absolutely correct. And the adjustment, I believe it says adjustment authorized. No, that's not it. I know we addressed this. We indicated that we may recalculate.
Right, that's in I also. The last line of I.
Yeah, you're right. There it says may.
Yes.
But it's not required.
If you'd like to say shall, we can change it to shall.
But
That would make it clearer, would it not?
well, not only that, I'm looking to get the city back its money quicker and help me, but if somebody puts in a multifamily, it's, wouldn't we get our money back quicker with more than 12? This is figured on 12 units being hooked up. So if all of a sudden, multifamily project goes in, the second hookup, now all of a sudden you got 2 or 3 more rather than just one unit, one payback. And everybody, it drops the price for everybody else. So unless I'm wrong, I just think it makes economic sense to get money back into the pot and lowers it for everybody else on the block.
So you're agreeable to change it from may to shall?
I think so.
And strike, but is not required to also?
Yep.
Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
I guess so.
If that's the right thing, right.
Yeah, I simply work with staff on developing this, and if you want to require them to do it, then that's what they'll need to be prepared to do.
Good.
Anybody else?
Yes, please.
Sir.
In that same paragraph, Mr. Apicello, K, such payment is triggered by City Ordinance 13.06.065. And on page 5, be advised that LCMC 13.12.160 identifies triggers. So we've got 2 references to trigger identification here. Perhaps they're both applicable, I don't know.
One second.
On page 5, that's line 5, identifying the municipal code number.
Well, one of the references, the 06065, is the obligation to pay the reimbursement fee under the reimbursement district ordinance. The other is a reference to the sewer ordinance that we were just in the process of amending. So yes, there are 2 references, both are applicable.
Okay, good. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one more question, just a clarification. So I look at the city recorder, I see she's getting more work out of this resolution. So on page 4, when we're talking section 8, the notice of the sewer connection triggers recording, I like that idea. I just want to make sure what this paragraph says is that it's the properties affected is having a document or some kind of notice recorded on their title?
It requires a recording, and staff discussed this, and again, when you use an ordinance, you sometimes find that you need to tweak it. And so as we talked about this, the current ordinance requires notice to be recorded at the county. And what we need to do is change the ordinance to allow notice through the electronic lien notice thing, which doesn't cost us anything. So I'll be bringing something back to that effect. But this does require a notice down at the county. Now, we don't want to record the resolution with the multi-page map engineering fee. So some notice other than the entirety of the document will be recorded, so we don't have to pay that much.
And so that will indicate when a title report is pulled that they're in a reimbursement district?
Yes, it does not act as a lien. Again, it is just a notice that there is an adopted reimbursement district.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Okay. All right, roll call?
Williams?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke?
Yes.
And Ward?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're at Resolution 2015-30, a resolution declaring surplus property, providing for exemption from Lincoln City Municipal Code 2.05 public contracts, competitive bid procedures, and approving disposal by auction.
Mayor Williams, just, I have the correction on the last page noted.
I'm sorry?
I have the correction on the last page noted.
All right. Oh, thank you.
You are the mayor, not the council president.
All right, thank you. Already forgotten all about that. Okay, so,
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we adopt Resolution 2015-30.
second. Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Anderson?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Before we go on, I want to just make, I want to be sure on something. It just occurred to me. I want to make sure, check in with Mr. Apicello on the VR rezoning that we just discussed, and whether I had any interest that I had to disclose within that.
No.
No? Okay, I didn't think so. All right, thank you. All right, just want to make sure we're all above board here. All right, special order business, construction contract award, Regatta Pump Station upgrade. Stephanie.
Good evening. Tonight, we're asking to award a construction contract for the Regatta Pump Station. It's a sewer pump station for this upgrade. This pump station is located at Regatta Park. It is currently the pumps are above ground, and the building is also shared by the restrooms at Regatta Park. So that's where we are. This project will upgrade that station. We will put the pumps below ground, improving the wet well, and also bring it up to current electrical and telemetry standards. So we were really fortunate. We advertised for bids on October 7th, and we opened bids on November 5th, and we received 7 bids. So we had a nice competitive bidding pool. The lowest bidder was Bates & Enterprise, LLC, in the amount of $219,454. Now, Bates & happens to be the same contractor who did the pumps, almost this exact design work at the Coast Pump Station, and he also did the Maryland Pump Station, completed that project. So he's had experience, and he was a low bid. The bids ranged up to the low of $219,000 to a high of $334,775,000. So again, a good range. We had in the budget $400,000 for this project. The total, then, we designed it in last year in 14-15 fiscal year, and completed in this year, projecting the cost to total $309,353.27. So that's, again, compared to the $400,000 budget. The staff is we're recommending that we award the construction contract to Bates & Enterprises in the amount of $219,454,000, and the contingency 10% of $21,945.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I was happy to see that on this project that we're $130,000 below budget, which I think is just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Doesn't happen very often.
We were dancing in the streets, Councilor.
Pardon?
We were dancing in the streets, Councilor,
Well, I
when this
guess
came
so.
through.
Now,
It
we've
wasn't
had
a pretty
a
sight.
couple that went the wrong way before, but this was great.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
That, yes, that's great, but it also asks the question, are we padding budgets and stuff? So I know there must be a good reason of why this one is so low, compared to our estimate, so that we have confidence with the other estimates.
We do. There were a couple of reasons. I did compare bid item by bid item, and again, there wasn't an outstanding item that was that we had estimated over or under. First of all, to step back a little bit, though, during the design, we had the $400,000 was really based on a preliminary design, and as we worked through this design, we were able to find some cost savings from that number. So we went in to bid this project with knowing that our engineer's estimate was lower than the $400,000. So, or lower than the 219. So lower than we knew that we designed a project. Originally, we had a $400,000 budget, but during the design, we were able to save some costs. So really, that was where a lot of the cost savings came from. Then during the bidding period, we had a real competitive, you can see a lot of competition in the bid. And really, the highest bid was not that bad either. It was, a good range. So had we had not a lot of interest in a higher bid, we would have been closer to that 400 with the contingency. But we're really trying during the estimating phase to anticipate that we might have things that we don't know, but we also don't want to make it so big that we design toward it or pad the number so our projects always come in under. I mean, we don't want to play that. So, but this just happened to be a good bid, and a better design than we thought during the budget period.
Well done.
Thanks.
Well, the recent two projects that we had that came in quite a ways over budget would seem to offset that, so that was why I was glad to see it.
Yes, and again, we look back at why, and
right.
Some of it was explainable, some of it was just the bidding climate, so.
Good job.
Mr. Ward.
So, on Enterprises Northwest, their bid was 50% higher than Bateson. And just, do we know that we're comparing apples to apples? When you say they're itemized out, there's a lot of difference in those two bids. Mm-hmm. It's a great deal of money. And it seems like we keep seeing that all the time. Are you able, when you have it itemized out, to compare apples to apples? But you say there's no big discrepancy, but one comes in $100,000 and some $1,000 over the other.
Right. Now, so say the bid is, say there's an example, there was 20 bid items. And we look for something that our engineers estimate where consistently something got obviously bid differently than we estimated it would be bid. We didn't find any of that. When you're comparing, so we compare all these bid tabs, we compare all the bids from each of the contractors, each of these items to each other. And again, it's every item, there's not one outstanding thing. One contractor bid high on one item and low on another, and aggregately they add up. And it's pretty common to have this. This is a pretty standard bid spread for this type of job, really. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's actually a good bid spread.
So on the project with Bateson Enterprises, they've done work for us on two other occasions.
Correct.
We're low bid.
Correct.
And how did they do on contingencies and that type of thing? Did they have to come back and dip into the well?
No, they were very, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember there was nothing outstanding but I know he works really well with us and talks through any changes, and it was very easy to work with him.
Thank you. I didn't mean to grill you.
No, that's all right. I didn't, those numbers I don't have, but I'm sure there was nothing outstanding. He's not that type of a contractor.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
We've got additional engineering cost of $27,000 plus. Is the same firm going to be doing the engineering that did it in 2014-15?
Yes, and that's for the construction management. Yes, it's the same firm.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I guess I'm looking for a motion then. Yes? Motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move with it, we award construction contract to Bates and Enterprises LLC in the amount of $219,454 with a construction contingency of $21,945, which is 10% of the bid amount. And that is a total of $241,399, I believe.
Looking for a second, but.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait.
Clarification, are we not just awarding the bid for Bates and Enterprises?
Bid and the contingency.
Bill and the contingency, okay. And then your total?
Total is $241,399.
Gotcha. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Norikis?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke? Yes. Ward?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Very clear. I appreciate it. All right, we are at the initiation of text amendment, and that was by J14, Special Order of Business, initiation of text amendment, administrative adjustment. The next item of business is a discussion of whether council should initiate a text amendment to Title 17, the zoning code, authorizing the planning director to approve administrative adjustments, also called minor variances. In addition, staff requests council to consider initiating a text amendment that will permit the planning director to initiate future amendments to the zoning code or zoning map. If either of these amendments is initiated, they will be scheduled for public hearings at both Planning Commission and City Council. The city attorney and planning director will present information on these matters.
Your Honor, this is an idea for an amendment to the code. I'm not asking you to amend the code. I'm not asking you to make the decision to amend the code tonight. I'm only asking that you pass a motion considering amending the code. So to the extent you have a communication from your planning commissioner saying, wait a minute, you've skipped us, no. We're simply following the code, which says there's initiation of an amendment. You have an idea. It can come from a citizen. It can come from the Planning Commission by motion, or it can come from you by motion. So, again, the decision isn't made. It's just initiation of an amendment. We give notice to the state. We have a public hearing before the Planning Commission. We have a public hearing before you. Then you decide whether or not to adopt an ordinance. So essentially, the idea is there is some flexibility in the county code for the planning director, or whatever he's called at the county, to make minor variance decisions, basically. Whereas your code says a variance has to go to the Planning Commission and the variance has to meet these 5 or 6 stated criterion. So I don't like calling it a variance, because a variance to me has a certain historical connotation of hardship, and administrative adjustment is more what we're looking at, a minor variation of the code, and it's simply a grant of authority to the planning director to make those decisions as opposed to running them through the Planning Commission. Again, the criterion would be it's small, it's minor, it's not significant, and probably the more important aspect of that is that it's not inconsistent with or won't be materially detrimental to the purposes of the zone. We're always concerned about consistency with your comprehensive plan and your zoning code, and so that's probably the most important criterion. Other than that, it just needs to be minor, and it needs to be less than 12 inches or less. So that's essentially the idea. I've observed since I've been here that there's a need for this kind of flexibility. I realize that whenever you allow again, whenever you allow a certain degree of flexibility, you will have people that will want to just assume that they're going to get that flexibility, and they'll start drawing their plans as if they can get it every time. And I think that just will fall on the planning director to basically use this sparingly. It is a land use decision. It is not just an administrative decision where he makes it outside of anybody's notice. He'll make a decision, affected parties will be given notice, and if they don't like it, they can appeal. So that's the suggestion. I just drafted some language, but this, again, is just preliminary. It's something that we can put in a format and run through the Planning Commission. And the request is for a motion to initiate the consideration of that amendment.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, just to put this a little bit into context, one of the recent examples we had of this was where a gentleman was getting ready to put in a foundation. The survey was off by 4 inches. He had poured his foundation. We came back and he didn't have very many options. We found a way to help him, but we could have required him to tear out the entire foundation over a 4-inch mistake by a surveyor. That's an example where this could come into play.
And before we go to the motion, I have that you may be presenting something. Do you want to? No? Okay, great. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, in the past, we had one planning director that was pretty much asked to leave because he used discretion instead of following the code. And that just concerns me that you may have winners and losers with this type of a situation, and I'm more inclined to feel like it should go through the Planning Commission. And
okay, well, before we open up the discussion, do I have a motion?
I thought that was what we were doing.
I thought we were looking for a motion and then a discussion after we get that. We can discuss now if you like.
So what would be the motion to bring back in, I mean, to me, I thought you prefaced, Mr. Mayor, an idea, and so to try to see if we're interested in some staff
right, we're not
work.
Voting anything happening other than that.
Yeah, so I guess I hate to make a motion on anything until I can hear the discussion.
Oh, that's fine.
You know, if that's all right.
I am so okay with that. Continue on.
Well, Mr. Councilor Anderson, if I were to make the motion, it would be to initiate. I think that's the crucial word, initiate an amendment.
Right.
Because it is a zoning ordinance.
Passing an amendment, we're not.
So to initiate an amendment to an existing ordinance to give this kind of flexibility, is that?
Correct.
And because this is a zoning ordinance, it does have to go to the Planning Commission. We can't miss that step.
And which again brings a lot of public discussion back into the play.
And, Your Honor, I omitted I have a second motion under the motions, and that's completely just discretionary. It was kind of almost an afterthought, but the first motion under potential motions is to initiate an amendment to 1752-020 to add administrative adjustment to the code. And again, that's to run it through the process to the Planning Commission and back to you. The second motion was, do you really want to have the council have to have this discussion, or do you want to allow the planning director to initiate amendments to the code without having it come to you? So that was kind of an afterthought to, if the planning director has a good idea, does he need to come to you to get a motion, or should he just go ahead? Can he do it on his own? A different discussion. So I'm focused on number one. Number two is an afterthought.
But then it still comes through us.
Yes. But again, it has to do with whether or not you want your planning director and staff to expend resources. So if you're not interested in keeping tabs on it beforehand, you wouldn't do number two. But again, I'm focused on number one here, under potential motions.
Yes.
My concern is that whatever language you use, like small, minor, or insignificant, you can go to war over those numbers. I mean, I don't know why I think that, but I'm concerned about perhaps inadvertently creating two processes. One is just an administrative decision, and you cut that corner and immediately go to start to go, and then the other are people having to go through the longer process, going through the Planning Commission. But the Planning Commission, I think, is there for a reason. And while our current administrative people would never dream of abusing it, I think it's at least a potential in the future that we could create two systems, and I think we have the planning department there for a reason, and they're doing a great job.
So, Mr. Mayor, it begs the question of, there must be something wrong with the existing process, because this feels like a request, a scream for, the process is elongated, takes doesn't work. And I guess, Commissioner Ward, or Councilman Ward is kind of saying my concern is we're adding to it rather than fixing. And what we may be bogged down in, help me, is because it's a land use, maybe so many of these are land use issues that we can't get rid of the process. And so trying to bring some flexibility to the table, and I applaud that, but there rises, the potential issues. So I guess having sat on the Planning Commission, I don't remember variances. They're only a word in the code, not approved very often, and you have to leap tall buildings to get them approved. So, that might be a concern first and foremost, and something we need to change. That I don't know if I endorse that, but look at that. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to fix, and if it's if we took your example, Mr. Chandler, of the 4-inch foundation, and the developer or owner would need to come back and could walk us through what those steps might be, because when would we want him to come back to the process?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, the examples that I believe that we're talking about is not something that is in the planning process. In other words, if we require a 10-foot setback, the planning director is not given the authority to make it 9 feet setback. It's not in the approval of whatever permit or whatever process they're going through. It applies more in the example that I had, where there is something that has come up during the, in this case, it would have been during the construction phase of that. I know that the gentleman that came and approached me and Mr. Townsend about this, of course, it was not only the cost of having to take out the foundation, but it was also the time that it would take to have to go back through the Planning Commission to have the necessary advertisements and so forth. So that was the concern that was expressed to us. It was not one in the approval process, but it was more than something that came up during the construction process.
So if I could, let's throw a height variance on there. So I'm all done with the structure, and I'm, my framers are lousy framers, so I'm a foot over. Or stay under 12 inches, so 11
Thank
inches. So I'm in that category. Is that also?
I'm going to bring this to our planning director so he can answer those questions.
I mean, I think this is where Councilor Ward was going, is how do we define whatever, minimal or minor variances? Because what I didn't hear in the discussion was, livability of other people in the neighborhood.
Yeah, actually, that's the criterion about the consistency with the comprehensive plan, and why I stole this language from the variance language, that will not be materially detrimental to the purposes of the zone. That's one of the variance criterion. What we're talking about here is, to a certain extent, another example would be you have a stairwell that encroaches into the setback more than it's authorized. It's 4 inches more than was authorized in the code. Under the county code, for example, there's certain encroachments that are authorized, and this encroaches a little more than was authorized. Well, it was discovered now. It's been about 10 years since it was built, but it's a non-compliance. So if you have a non-compliance, that causes certain problems for you. Number one, you get Mr. Townsend writing you letters going, hey, you're in non-compliance. Number two, you may cause problems when you try to sell your home. So we're looking for a mechanism that is less than a full variance, but still relief. And I like variances in terms of the strictness of getting a variance. I think you're correct. They should be approved sparingly. But that said, at times we have a need for minor adjustments.
As this is written also, it's only yard requirements. It's not height. You couldn't vary the height as this is written. Now, obviously, the Planning Commission and the City Council, when they, assuming you authorize going forward, you can make changes, but the proposal is just on the setbacks themselves. And I think there's some, if we do go forward with this, I think there's some tuning that needs to be done to it, too, particularly about when it can happen. In other words, you don't want someone coming in if they have a required 10-foot setback, and they said, okay, here's my plans, and it shows 9 feet, and grant that, please. Which I don't want. I don't want to be in that situation as planning director. But when we have the situation with a survey error or something like that, I think then that's appropriate. We did have a situation several years ago. I don't know if that was when you were on the council or not, or on the planning commission or not, when someone wanted to put a manufactured home on a lot, and I think the required some of the setbacks was 10 feet, and he had a 50-foot lot, required 5 feet on each side, and his manufactured home, I think, was 40 feet 4 inches. I can go back to 4 inches again, but it had to go through the whole planning commission consideration for that. So it seemed like it'd be nice to be able to say, we have 4 inches.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think Mr. Ward was up to bat here.
So I guess probably one of my concerns is, so you got a surveyor that makes a mistake. When does that become the city's problem rather than the surveyor's problem? I mean, does that make sense at all?
No, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, wouldn't the natural recourse is say, tell the surveyor, well, we're going to have to knock that out and move it back because the surveyor made the mistake.
I mean, that can be one result of that, because variances are hard to get, and one of the criterion is that it can't be your own fault. And conceivably it could be that they would have to tear it down, and the builder or property owner might have to take legal recourse against the surveyor or something.
Mr. Sprague?
If somebody's 4 inches off on the foundation and you grant the variance, it still is going to be a problem in the resale, isn't it?
Not if they have a variance, because then it's legal.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a variance. It would just be an okay on
an
your
adjustment
part.
or whatever. There would still be legal. There would be a document making it legal.
Okay. Another thing that concerns me is that if we may start this process where instead of a 7-foot setback for a 2-story home, all of a sudden now we're at a 6-foot setback, and people are begin to want to take advantage of that.
Right.
That concerns me.
Well, for me, I like the idea. I love the idea of having some discretion in these things, because I've spoken to a couple of builders who have really reached the boiling point with not being able to get these little adjustments, where they just said, I am just about ready to stop doing business in this town because I can't get something done for, that problem wasn't my fault. I didn't do the survey, but now I'm going to be penalized for it. And it's not just that person, that builder, it's all the people who work for that builder who are now going to have to be stopping work while all this is torn out. And I just, for 4 inches, and I understand everyone's concerns that, it's creep, but I think we do need to have a little trust in our staff. We seem to trust our staff quite a bit when they present us their bids and their ideas, and we've chosen the right people. And hopefully we will continue to choose the right people. But I think we need that flexibility. I remember vividly when I was building my cafe, and I remember talking to the inspector saying, look, it's not what you're asking me to do, it's when you're asking me to do it. I've already buttoned up a wall, and now I'm being asked to tear it out. Well, I've still got a mortgage to pay, I've still got people to pay, but now I've got to take this thing down because it was something that wasn't my fault. And I just want to see that paid attention to, that we're not discouraging people from doing business with our town.
Mr. Mayor, I think this was good, healthy discussion, raising the issues that the council has, and I'm game for pushing it down to Planning Commission and exploring the idea. We'd get another shot at it, but the good thing of that would let them who deal with land use and idea really flesh it out before it came back to us, and clearly they can hear our concerns this evening as they flesh it out, and it may die or may come back to us in a form of amendment. But at this point, I'm willing to make a motion to have them, discuss an amendment, propose an amendment, if that would be the wording.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
Are we done with discussion?
Keep discussing.
No, we just had a motion and a second. You can still discuss.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second to initiate amendment LCMC 17.52.020 to add administrative adjustment provision to the zoning code, correct? The first one. All right. Discussion. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm here to please.
Yeah. No, my intent wasn't to be draconian, have them tear everything down, but just if things can slip a little, they'll slip a little. That's just the nature of things. And I would hate to get into a spot. Years ago, there was a brouhaha over too much discretion and not enough accountability. And I'm just cautious not to slide into that area. And, yeah, that's it.
Okay. So any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out that we do have a definition here of minor, and that's 12 inches or less.
Any further discussion? Can I do this on a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you for that discussion. All right, we are now, we're near the home stretch. City manager,
Mayor,
you're still here.
If I could just ask, Mr. Apicella asked about a second, initiating a second item, which would allow me to initiate amendments. In other words, still would go through the Planning Commission and City Council, but it lets me initiate me as Planning Director, initiate proposed changes. Just making it official. Our ordinance says that the public can initiate it, the council can initiate it, and the Planning Commission can initiate. It's just adding one more, also allowing me the Planning Director to initiate amendments.
That was my number 2 under the suggested motions, and it's something I've seen in other jurisdictions. So when Richard and I were talking about it, we said, well, we could ask you while we're here. So if it's not something you're ready to do tonight, we can come back with some additional language. I didn't actually write any language for that. We'd just be basically adding the Planning Director to the list of people that could initiate amendments.
I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, that if you're interested in that, you also refer that to the Planning Commission to get their input on this.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we initiate an amendment to LCMC 17.88.020 to add provision to permit the Planning Director to initiate zoning code text amendments.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a question.
Sir.
that still has to go either to us or to the Planning Commission, is that correct?
Has to go through both.
Okay.
Still planning, public hearings at both levels still.
Okay.
All it is about starting the process, who gets to start it.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm curious, Mr. Townsend, what would be different from, if Planning Commission could initiate things anyway, because that's in the ordinance, up till now, you've had to secretly visit with them or not visit with them? They had to come up with this stuff on their own? Or this seems a little bit, and I'm poking fun at it, but because, the agenda is set, you talk with folks getting it on the agenda, and it's presenting ideas, so.
It's really making it explicit that I have.
You want this?
Yeah. It just avoids the possibility of sort of a technical challenge, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'll go with that, because I applaud the, effort like this council, like this is an idea, or, Mayor, where you present different discussion items or ideas. I would hope the Planning Commission would have that same flexibility and, what they might want to pursue and run. So your explanation helps me with the challenge aspect. Thank you.
I just have one question, and it may be silly. Is there a reason I wouldn't want this? Any reason why I wouldn't want the planning director, not you, but that position involved in this?
I can't imagine why you would, because no matter what, you've got the final, the city council has the final say on any text amendments.
Okay.
It goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation. No matter who initiates it, the Planning Commission has a hearing, makes a recommendation, comes to the city council. There's a hearing here, and the final decision is with the council.
Good enough.
To a certain extent, Your Honor, what removing this step would do would be to avoid that kind of question like, oh, you've already made up your mind because, see, on this date you initiated the amendment. Well, if it came from the planning department in the first instance, then you don't have that accusation that council just went through the motions because it already approved it back when it initiated the amendment.
Okay. Where are we in this? That's the end of the discussion? Any more discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right. Now, we are at city manager, city attorney reports.
Just two very brief things, Mr. Mayor. The first is to remind you that next Monday we do have a work meeting that is scheduled at 3 o'clock. It is the next of our VRD discussions. And then and that will be, of course, here in this room. And then the second thing is just happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I have a question for the manager.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chandler, in the July 13 minutes, there was reference, Councilor Ward asked about the possibility of charter helping us with a project after we had approved the franchise agreement, and they were going to report to you on what other jurisdictions had done, and I'm wondering, has that been accomplished?
They have. They have sent us the information on about 4 of their most recent franchise agreements and the differences between theirs and ours. We're currently doing a little bit more research on other franchise agreements to see if there's anything else in there. And now that we are done with Pacific Power and a couple of other things, we'll be bringing that back to you in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
And if I could you mention to council and public in general about what you just shared with me about the process we were discussing for committees and such?
Yes, I wasn't able to complete for tonight some of the changes that I had discussed with the mayor on the committee, or the selection for candidates for the committee. Essentially, what we had discussed is that once the due date has passed and our recorder has had a chance to check each of the applicants for that they meet the minimum qualifications, then she will give that to the mayor. The mayor will then distribute those to the two council members who he will select to conduct the interviews and then come back with a recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
I have nothing.
Well, okay. Good day for everybody. Reports from standing committees? None. Additional comments from citizens present on non-agenda items? The back of the room. Come forward. You don't have to run. It's okay.
We all want to get out of here quick.
Hi.
Just want to read two.
Sorry. I just wanted to read two.
No, I need your name one more time, please.
Oh, Ross Smith, sorry.
Thank you.
Two short emails, won't take but a minute. This is from a gentleman named Bob Russell. He's the mayor of a small town here in Oregon. Ross, thank you for taking on the fight. And he lists his address. I have owned the cabin since about 1983, and my parents owned it since about 1970. I spent my honeymoon there in 1974, and my family has enjoyed many happy times there. I am so disgusted with the Gestapo tactics and short-sighted and so-called leadership that my house is for sale. I can't wait to write a letter to the editor telling the world I will never set foot in Lincoln City again, and my extended family and friends feel the same way. No wonder the real estate values continue to lag behind everywhere else. When are the citizens of Lincoln City going to wake up? I am the mayor of my city of 8,700 citizens, and I would be run out of town if I allowed these tactics to go on here. And that's, he's a mayor of Eagle Point, Oregon.
Guys, if I could ask to stop the shuffling a little bit, I can't hear. Thanks.
Sorry. And another email he sent a month later, and this one he CC'd the DOJ representative. I have owned a home here in Lincoln City for over 40 years. I've tried to rent it out to make ends meet. I currently live in Southern Oregon, and I am very involved in my local community. I have never seen anything like what is going on with Lincoln City's council. Does no one have the backbone to stand up to this city attorney? This guy has some kind of agenda that is ruining what used to be a nice city to be a part of. I believe he serves at the behest of the council, and someone in the council needs to stand up to this bully and call a spade a spade. The community finally got a mayor with some common sense, and this council has continued to listen to this misguided city attorney, spent a fortune of taxpayers' money, and appointed their past loser mayor to a 3.5-year term instead of giving the voters the right to choose one themselves. Personally,
Ross, I'm sorry. I appreciate you reading these, but it's kind of crossing the line here with me. I appreciate it, but they're not for me. They're for someone else. If they don't want to enter them into a record, I'm okay with that, but I don't want to.
And I don't necessarily agree with this. I think Mr. Anderson is a decent man, and I've been championing him.
I understand. Just cautioning you just a little bit here, please.
I think I'm sorry. Okay, let me just finish. It doesn't get any worse than that.
Thank you.
I have discovered Brandon, and it is worth the extra drive to be in a well-managed and friendly community. I have always wondered about the secret underlying influence of the hotel-motel lobby on this seemingly quiet council. Bob Russell. So, in the rest of my 5 minutes, I'd just like to say that I have nothing personal against the attorney or you guys. I just want what's best for the city, and I just hate all this divisiveness. You know, Chester, we could probably be friends if we got to know each other. I know you've been to India twice, and I love India. I've been so many times, and you know, Kip, you seem like a decent man. I'd like to get to know you. I don't know anything about you, Susan, but I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that it's nothing personal, okay?
Thank you, Ross. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Please come forward. Mm-hmm.
Is that a good level, I think? Perfect. My name is Dana Gray Kane. I'm a resident of the Dorchester House, and I'm here with Joe Francis Kalk to speak to the issue of the truly grave food crisis, not just specifically in Lincoln City, that's true everywhere, as she just said, but specifically at the Dorchester House. There are approximately 70 residents there, and I am among the fortunate ones who is ambulatory and has enough money to survive there extremely well. Most do not. We have had the great benefit lately of the help of Nancy Mitchell, who is the head of the food bank, the food share program, who made a special effort, possibly even at the risk of her job, which I greatly admire, to extend a special program, quote, quote, to the Dorchester to help solve a food crisis that was to the point of no food for some. A few now have Meals on Wheels, which gives them a meal a day. Some have food stamps. The food stamps do not make it for 4 weeks. I invite you to try it. In fact, I'll be happy to fund it if you'd like to try it. I can afford to do that. These people eat well, sort of, for 2 weeks, not the other 2. So, the food share program is not equipped to do what the people who are incapacitated enough to be in trouble at the Dorchester need. You have to be able to drive to the food bank. You have to sign up. You have to stand in line. You have to lift cases of food. You have to drive back yourself. There is no surrogate program available yet, even though Nancy Mitchell would surely like one. So there needs to be something done for people, not just the Dorchester people, but I can really speak for them because I know many of them, that there can be some ongoing supplemental way to use food which indeed is stacked up in the warehouses to which they have no access. So I would like to ask all of you to consider a way to do that, to change the rules of the food bank. Thank you.
Could you, who's in charge of the food bank?
Nancy Mitchell.
No, I mean, it's a private, it's a...
The food share, you mean? I should say food share, not bank. I believe I'm incorrect in saying bank. I believe it's share.
And so that's a nonprofit.
It is, I'm quite sure it must be. And she's in Newport.
So what would the council have to do with...
Well, Lincoln City needs something here where we can bring some food in to make it accessible to people who cannot meet the rules under which they could get food access if they could get to Newport.
So it's a...
There isn't anything in Lincoln City that is filling this need consistently enough to keep people well nourished.
Okay.
That's the issue. I can be much more specific. I can also make a proposal for that if you'd like.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry. Kip gets there right ahead of you there, Roger.
Jackrabbit. Could you, I'm sorry, I'm not up to date what's going on at the Dorchester. Can you explain to me, give me a little background on how it got to this spot now?
Yes, I think I can. Although I'm a new resident of Lincoln City, I've known the Dorchester since I was 8 years old as a visitor. Originally it was, as you know, a very fine hotel, and that then eventually became an assisted living place, which I understand failed. Another attempt to make it assisted living failed, and now it is merely retirement apartments age 58 and up. The management there, and I presume the ownership, which is an LLC in Salem, I understand, have seemingly no interest whatsoever in the ongoing care of the residents who are now merely tenants in apartments. They are not assisted living people. So the issue is, to answer your question, because there was an assisted living program there, and several people were grandfathered in, there was a dining room, which is recently closed on October 30th, in fact, which used to provide 3 hot meals a day for those who could afford it, and some could. They basically have either died or they have been removed to assisted living, the ones who could afford to be. So the crux of the issue is the ones who are left are frail, fragile, some of them have dementia, some of them cannot walk, some of them cannot leave their rooms. They are subsisting on Meals on Wheels, which we have just been able to arrange for approximately 17 of them. Some of them have food stamps. Many of them are, I would say at least one is pre-suicidal over this issue. We stopped that by personally paying for some groceries the other day. Needless to say, we can't keep doing that. But at any rate, that's the situation at the Dorchester. Does that answer your question well enough?
Yeah, that's a very sad answer. Thank you.
Indeed it is. Well, thank you for listening to me. I didn't mean to make it such a tirade, but I thought it was important.
Thank you. Please stay in touch with us.
I shall. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Norikis, I'm wondering about this conversation and the one earlier from Joe Francis, and I'm thinking of the Council of Governments. And do they not have a leg in this assistance program from? Isn't Meals on Wheels?
Meals on Wheels, that's right.
And I'm wondering if others, if my notes were right, trying to coordinate and or identify different services. And this is kind of what we were talking the other night with the county. What does the county have here, and the food pantry and Council of Governments, which is more of a. So I guess my question is there maybe a contact person that we could provide these ladies with? Because a lot of this work may already be done that they're so elegantly looking to, go down if we could just get them to the right people.
I think Joe Francis is pretty well on top of all that.
Well, just I get I'm wondering, why the question of asking us permission, first and foremost, kind of bothers me, versus the element to just do it, unless we're looking for, do we have a role as a government? And I know we're members of the Council of Governments, and Chester's the contact person there, so I was looking to see if we could help intervene and even the words used just got people hooked up with Meals on Wheels. Heck, Meals on Wheels have been here a long time. We fund them. We house them. So I don't know what the process is, and that kind of bothers me if it takes, months on end to get somebody hooked up with Wheels on Meals.
Please, if no objection.
No.
Please come forward.
If you tolerate the education, thanks.
Always.
I hope so. Meals on Wheels is fantastic. They do a spectacular job. They have had 4 out of 5 employees quit, for what reason I do not know, which left all of the applications and the interviews of people, which must be done individually for each person applying for it, in the hands of one remaining staff member who had to cover a lot of bases in Lincoln City besides the Dorchester. So it took an inordinate amount of time. Sometimes one person waited up to 7 weeks needing food. There you are.
So you're saying within that interview process they're applying to get the food?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but
you have to,
it's not irregardless of the drivers. The drivers.
Oh, no, the drivers are lovely, but they have to, they're the end of the process.
Okay,
the process is a form which is immeasurably long and complex, which most of these people can't fill out themselves. And the people who process the form have to come to the Dorchester or to anywhere and interview each person individually and approve of them, get them signed up, get it determined what they need, check out their apartment to see who they are and how they're living, make sure there's no abuse going on. All of that has to be done. And it was reduced to one particular person who was left in the Meals on Wheels organization to do all this, and she did it. She got 17 people signed up, but it took her a great deal of time because she had all that responsibility. I do not know why the 4 people left.
So, Mr. Mayor, that again, I'm glad you brought that forward. I again would look at the Council of Governments. I'm wondering, Chester, if maybe we could check to see if it's a staffing issue at Meals on Wheels Central, or is it, even if it is an issue in Lincoln City, where if we knew about it earlier, we could roll in? I guess it bothers me that one of our partners doesn't raise their hand that they're having a terrible time getting staff or having staff or eliminating this backlog.
I can certainly inquire, and I'll report back to the council.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know what else we do, Mr. Mayor, but other than send the alarm out that, we're here to help if we know about it, and...
Thank you.
Well, and thank you.
And of course, that leaves the overriding issue of it isn't enough anyway.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, and something I've been hearing a lot of, and I'm trying to figure a way to address it, is transportation. It's very difficult. I think I shared the story watching someone leave the food pantry up by the vineyard with 2 cases of food, put one down, walk about 50 yards ahead, drop it, come back, get the other, hopscotch, and walk this down. And it's like, wait, for a $7 cab ride, we should be able to take care of some of these people in some measure, whether it's a voucher system or I don't know what it's going to be, whether the government needs to be involved at all, but I just know that I keep hearing that over and over and over. I would take advantage if I could get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's buses, and I know, but whatever. I just think it's something that some way, somehow, whether it's with our granting program, the one-year grants, that we figure out a way to do that or not, but I'd sure love to hear from somebody a way to address that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, hand up first over here.
Pastor Harrison from Agape Fellowship. Concerning the transportation, this has been talked about here in Lincoln City for a while. The Dorchester House, we have the Lincoln City Transit bus, and I actually have the bus. One of the bus drivers is in our church, and I asked him point blank, could they drive by the food pantry? Could they take people right to the food pantry and then come back out onto 101? And he said, somebody with clout would have to ask that. If he asked that question, it wouldn't get done. But it would be a very simple thing for the bus traveling north from the south to swing in past the cultural center, drive past the food pantry, drop anybody off there, and swing back on through and come back out on 101, and coming back south, stop in again and pick anybody up. The same thing would be true with the Dorchester House. If they have no way of getting to the food pantry to get food, if they had a city transit bus stop at the Dorchester House and then drive them to the food pantry and then catch another bus and have the buses arranged to where they're not going to be sitting at the food pantry for hours on end. But that is a very easy fix as far as transportation goes.
And they're only running 2 days a week, is that right? The food pantry? Yeah, just 2
They
days a
only
week
run
anyway,
2 days
so-
a week, right. But it would get them food, and it would give them the transportation that they were saying they needed. And if it's strictly just a transportation thing, it's just getting the transit moving and doing it. Now, the tickets are $1 a ride here in town. But I think there's enough kind-hearted, good-hearted people in town that will give out tickets to people in need. And even the city could do that. I know the city helps feed people and do things for fund organizations. Well, this is something that the city could get behind and say, we do this. But that's just an area that I think could be solved very easily.
Great, good ideas. Thank you. Joe Francis?
I'm Joe Francis Kalk, and I live in the Dorchester House. I just wanted to clarify that the Dorchester was not an assisted living place. It was a place where you had 3 meals, and they did provide transportation and things, but it was not assisted living. It didn't have nurses and on premises. I just wanted to explain that. Also, the reason I'm looking for authorization or something is so that when I do call the Council of Governments, I'm not just this crazy lady who's talking about, we're trying to do something, but I have some backing saying that the city is interested in coordinating resources within the city limits to coordinate and to co-locate places to help the low income, and so that's why I was asking for that.
Ron, is that something we would get you involved in?
Well, certainly, I can become yes, I can look at it.
That's not to give you more work to do, but I'm trying to figure out a starting point in this discussion.
And that would be something that Chester also could mention.
Okay.
Just as your point, I mean, he's been on the board, and, if you want someone with clout,
I do have a question, though. The Dorchester House for years has had a town car that they've driven their residents around. Is that gone now?
I have not seen it lately. They appear to have cut back on staff. They do have 24-hour coverage through with a manager, and they do have one maintenance person. That is all that I've seen. So I don't think that they have the town car anymore.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
When I was at the senior fair, I went over to their booth, and I told them that I was surprised that they were no longer serving meals, and I was told by the person who was there that it was not a local decision, it was a corporate decision from Salem, apparently. I know a number of people who lived there and who went there with the understanding that they did have so many meals per day if they wanted, and that they truly missed that.
Yes, and what I had heard was that it was reported that only about 5 or 7 people were eating per day, but I saw a lot more than that in the dining room. So I don't know if corporate had that full information or if it was just a numbers decision.
And they used to host the chamber there as well.
And I would be very open to an invitation to come visit. So if you would
good.
I would like to come
Dana can show you the
some folks.
departments that the people.
Yeah.
I don't mean to belabor this point. I'm just trying to reach clarity here. How bad is the situation right now at the Dorchester? How desperate is it? Or is it desperate?
A lot of people had to move out, and some had to move back to their children's, move back in with their children or something. They couldn't be independent anymore because they couldn't afford another place. There are not any other places for them to move to. Lakeview is a wonderful place, but it is also an expensive place. And so the ones that have remained are just making it, but they have nowhere to go now. They're just in their room. They can't congregate. I asked if we could at least deliver all the Meals on Wheels to the dining room, and I was told no, because they would just make a mess that the management would have to clean up. So there's no socialization. There's no getting out anymore. There's no group discussions or anything. And so the situation is, I think, is bad. I'm not complaining about Meals on Wheels. I think they're doing the best they can. The woman has the entire Lincoln County to cover, to sign people up, and they've done it as best they could. And the woman who's running it is very, very concerned about all of the of helping all of the low-income people with the food. So I don't want to, just complain about them. The food pantry, you have one per month. You have one visit per month that you can have. So there are pools. I mean, there's opportunities. We have the churches and the faith communities have some lunches that, or some dinners that people can go to, and trying to coordinate them so that people have access to at least 2 full meals a day, which is what one of my purposes in trying to coordinate all the resources.
Thank you, Joe Francis. Appreciate it so much. That's sobering. Anyone else? No. Okay. Announcements or comments for City Council?
Nothing.
No? Okay. All I've got is, of course, Thanksgiving coming up, and wish you all a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. Watch the travel. I guess we're going to have some low snow levels and some cold weather. We also have the tree lighting ceremony on Friday the 27th at 4:45 at the Cultural Center. I'll be there giving the official countdown, and would love to have as many people as possible come and cheer us on. And then we have our BRD workshop at 3, and I think that's all I've got. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Sir?
I want to be sure that in the process of interviewing potential candidates for the different positions, that we have at least 2 members of the council.
Right, and thank you for bringing that up again, because I need to bring up what Chester had brought forward about the library, what was the word you used?
Library board.
The library board, right. We need to appoint an interview committee. So Chester's on one. I need someone else to help out the interviews for the library.
I'm willing to do that.
All right, Susan's on that. Great. And then if anyone else wanted to step up on committees right now, that's great. But we can talk about it later. And I kind of just want to clarify real quick, in case anyone's concerned about what we had talked about, what Ron and Councilor Anderson, and I think, were you there?
No,
Susan was there. Just because of the confusion that happened last year, I just wanted to make sure we had a streamlined policy. I'm not trying to wrest control of anything. I just want to be able to tell people when they apply, here's the pathway it's going to follow, and that's all I'm asking for. So we have something clear to tell people, and that's it.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
If I can, a little advice on your weather report.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I cringe every time you and newscasters talk about snow over the overpass. So let me remind the travelers that, you know, at 760 feet, one can still travel Highway 18 to Lincoln City. It
Always.
is unlikely that we will have any snow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
An abundance of caution, but we thank you for that. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
In Mr. Chandler's weekly report on November 6th, he lets us know that we have eliminated all the old telemetry phone systems at the wastewater pump stations and updated them with a new system that utilizes cell phones. More reliable, and it gives us better data. I'm glad to hear that. It's a sign of progress. We also have a new generator for the Emergency Operations Center, and it's up and running at the wastewater collection shop. More progress. Thank you.
Last chance. Anyone else? With that, I thank you all. God bless you all, and God bless Lincoln City. We are adjourned.
So what's the status of other committees?
Pardon? Well, none right now. Thank you, Joe Francis.
Joe Francis, would you email me that proposal?
That's right.
All right.
Thank you.